Hari Om, Brahmaraji. Just let me know, my internet is still the same.
Yeah, you can start if you wish to, Bella. We'll see how it works. If there's a difficulty, of course, I'll take over. Okay?
Yeah. Om. Om. Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shantihi. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Hari Om. Ram Navami Parvanasya Sarvebhya Shubhashaya. I will just read the previous shloka. I will chant and then we will go to the new, some headlines we will go through. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Gruhyate. Shri Bhagavan said, no doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the agitated mind is very difficult to control. But, O son of Kunti, by practice and objectivity, it is mastered. Acceptance is the first step. Krishna accepts this one great psychological fact that the nature of the mind is agitation. One does not try to remove the agitation, one simply accepts that it is agitation. Do not get agitated over agitation, thinking that it is something you are going to solve. Also, do not think that your mind is something peculiar, because it is not. Any mind is agitation. Since the nature of the mind is kshanika, naturally it is going to change. Therefore, Krishna says, there is no doubt about it, Arjuna. The mind is chala, chanchala, restless. The word chala also means agitation, and being chala, it is very difficult to control. Manah durnigraham chalam. There is nothing illogical in the world. There is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic. Originally, of course, everything is illogical, but then afterwards, it is all logical. Within the illogical, we find there is a logic. That is, we understand that when something occurs, there is some reason for it. We must understand then that the mind is like this. This is its nature. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Caring for the child within by addressing Arjuna here as Kaunteya, meaning the son of Kunti, Krishna is indicating that the child was still there in Arjuna, which is where the mind has its own roots. This child has to be taken care of by the person. Therefore, there is double child care. When you were a child, someone else took care of you. But now you have to take care of your inner child. Practice of japa. Here the practice abhyasa of japa can also be included. The usefulness of a mantra. A brahmachari has a mantra, a grihastha has a mantra, a vanaprastha has a mantra, and a sannyasi also has a mantra. There is no one who is without a word that is meaningful, either chosen by the person or given to that person. Contemplation is appreciation of fact. In this way, the distance between the thought and self becomes very clear. The thought is this, thought is not everything. Thought is imbued with the self. This becomes very clear. And if I turn my attention towards the self, it becomes contemplation. I appreciate the self as independent of the thought. The more you appreciate this fact, thought becomes purely a rule, not taken as everything. Why mind wanders? The second means for making the mind abide in itself, mentioned here by Krishna, is vairagya, objectivity. Why does the mind go here and there in the first place? The mind goes elsewhere purely due to lack of interest. The nature of the mind is to go wherever there is some kick, wherever there is something more interesting. Some interest must be there, and towards that it goes. Thus, without your trying to dwell upon anything in particular, the mind naturally goes towards the objects that it finds more interesting. Why we seek acceptance from others? This seeking acceptability from others is nothing but self-acceptance. Self-acceptance through others. Why should anyone accept you? So that you can accept yourself. Therefore, seeking the acceptance of others can always be reduced to self-acceptance. Whether you seek the acceptance of others or you seek self-acceptance, it amounts to self-acceptance alone. Thus, either you seek acceptance through others or you yourself understand that you do not accept yourself and try to find out whether the self is acceptable, which is the real way of dealing with the problem, in fact. The meaning of vairagya, objectivity, the absence of shobhana adhyasa, shobhan adhyasa, the absence of
Shobhanadhyasa. It is,
shobhanadhyasa.
yeah, adhyasa is superimposition, and shobhanadhyasa is where we superimpose something pleasant or something that is shobha, that is something that will be, should I say, pleasant, something loving that will happen from that. Shobhanadhyasa.
Real, right? Which is mithya only we try to.
Yeah, it is not real. It is a superimposition.
Yes.
Superposition on that.
The absence of shobhanadhyasa is what is meant by vairagya. Vairagya enables one to separate the objective attributes of any object from the subjective superimpositions one may have placed upon it. When superimposed attributes are understood as attributes that are superimposed, the object is reduced to its own status. I think this we had done very well yesterday, right? The superimposition is not deliberate. Therefore, to think that money is the source of the problem is not correct. There is a superimposition here, which is not deliberately done by a person, but is something innate in a psyche that is exposed to a certain value, to a certain value structure obtaining in a given society, causing the person to place an attribute on money that is not really there. This superimposition, Shobhana Dhyasa, has to be neutralized by looking at money as money is, nothing more. To say that money has no value is just another adhyasa. You are seeing something that is not true. Similarly, if you add something more to money than is really there, it is also adhyasa. Reducing the objects to their own status is enough. By doing this, you will find in yourself a certain dispassion, which is vairagya.
Sir, I just want to mention the importance of doing dana, doing charity. So normally, and it is actually prescribed, according to Shastra, yajna dana tapah karma na tyajet. We should continue doing yajna, dana, and tapah karma. So with respect to money especially, only when you see money as money are you also able to part with it, to give it away in charity. Otherwise, a person who has this shobhana dhyasa of money would not be able to so freely give it away in dana.
Absolutely right.
No, you would want to hoard it. Like that person said, invest. I'm going to invest. Invest and do what? How long will you keep it? And ultimately, when you leave the body, you are not taking all these
Anything.
any of these with you. So that
Hastasya
aspect of
bhushanam.
dana, the aspect of dana is so beautifully ingrained in our Shastra, which will naturally bring in that aspect of vairagya there, that objectivity of things.
Yeah. And experiencing that real joy when you give. Neutralizing the superimposition. Any object of liking can become an object of obsession sooner or later, and therefore a problem. There are books being written today about people who love too much, meaning they cannot love at all. Because they cannot keep an object of love in its proper perspective, it becomes a problem for them. The object of love can consume a person so completely that it becomes an obsession, leading to attempts to control, vying for position, etc. Seeing things as they are. The capacity to look at things as they are is called objectivity. There is no judgment involved here, just an understanding of things as they are. This objectivity is especially important in terms of our subjective values because we do not know the object of these values as they really are. We are not concerned here with the physical structure of objects, only with the value we superimpose upon them. Objectivity and subjectivity. Suppose you buy a piece of bronze thinking it is an antique. In fact, it has been oxidized to make it look very old. An ear has been cut, the nose poked, and some scratches put on it to make it look as though it has fallen down a few times. All of this has been deliberately done to increase its value. And you buy it thinking it is an ancient piece. And when you realize that it is not an antique, you are disappointed and experience a sense of loss. Now, what did you lose here? Only the subjective value that you had superimposed on it. The bronze does have certain objective value. Thinking it is an antique, you had placed a subjective value on it. That subjective value has little or nothing to do with the objective value of the object. To think of a simple piece of bronze as something great is purely subjective, nothing more. Vairagya is knowing that an object is just an object. When a subjective value superimposed upon an object is gone, then the object is just the object. This holds for all objects, that there is Shobhana Dhyasa, a superimposition that has taken place naturally, an extra attribute that does not really exist in the object has to be recognized. Therefore, again and again, I see the object as it is. And in the wake of this knowledge, the superimpositions go. So seeing money as money.
That is why a jnani is able to have the samadarshana between between clay, gold, and anything else. There is no difference for him. For him, he sees the value that mud has is the same as the value that the gold is. He does not have the Shobhana Dhyasa. Shuni chaiva shvapake cha panditaha samadarshinaha. Shuni, between a dog, a person who eats dog meat, and a Shuni chaiva shvapake cha. Yeah, he does not see the difference between these two. For him, they are the same. Because ultimately, when you look at the big picture, all of Jagat is just a mithya. And everything within Jagat is mithya. It is that we give some relative importance and attach values to the things within the Jagat. And that is what causes the Shobhana Dhyasa. No doubt in the Vyavaharika Satya, we have to differentiate between clay and gold and food. Otherwise, you will not be eating food. You will be so that little element of differentiation, seeing an object as an object, is important for us to live. But when you're dealing with objects and you want to place an object as in its place and not give it more importance than it actually is.
Just the subject object values, right? Yeah, so the object is an object, so it's just an object, that's it, nothing more than that. The subjective value, when you put it more on that, then you think it is valuable, but it's not. You know,
and the subjective go ahead.
I posted this one Swamiji talk. This is different one. It actually talks about the whole thing that you're reading now, and nicely what is consciousness, and then the subject, object, all your favorite subject about the sleep, It's really nice. But it's an hour talk. But if you have time, listen to it. I posted
Certainly.
both. That you remember that we
Pratasmarami, right?
I
just had a
song. Look. Yeah, it is complete. That essence of this consciousness is what is posted there. It's really, I enjoyed it. So I really, I mean, this whole thing, what we read yesterday, whatever we read even in the past, it's all like rounded in one ball like that. It's so nice.
Yeah. It's very
Yeah, thank you
beautiful.
for sharing.
Swami Sarva Priyananda's course, very beautiful. Dhanyavad for sharing, Dr. Mara. It was very nice.
Yeah. Did you hear it? Or you heard it before?
Yes, I did. I have not completely heard the complete. I still have to. I could manage only little, but it was very, very profound, very profound. It
Yeah.
really sums up everything what we have been talking so far.
Yeah, when you all listen to it, we can discuss it. You know, it's really nice to go over it. I'm sorry to digress here. Sorry, but
Which one? Which one?
I just posted today the Prataswarami that that
Udi
morning
Samsurat
prayer.
Atma Tattvam.
Yeah, that about that he
Before
explains it
that, yeah.
thoroughly. The Swamiji explains this. Swamiji explains it thoroughly about that. And I posted the song and the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, it is by Swami Sarva Priyanandaji from Ramakrishna Mission. Very, very powerful he is.
Thank you so much. I love this Pratasmarami thing and I chant it in the morning. But
Oh, that's why
in-depth
we talk
meditative
about it.
contemplation is needed actually.
Exactly. So that's about what it is. And if you, it's really, you know, eye-opening kind of thing, you know, because even we read the meaning, we don't understand the whole thing. I mean, at least I didn't. And this one really somebody known like a guru kind of person explains it. It's really nice, you know. You really amazed about how Adi Shankara's knowledge is so much and he had given so much to us. And you have to read one by one. Because yesterday we were talking about Brahma Jnanavali, so I was kind of chanting with like she said on the YouTube. Then this came up. Okay, let me see what this is. And then that was really interesting.
So when we look at subjectivity of an object, we look at an object with the filter of our raga and dvesha, which is why coming back to karma yoga is so important. In order to remove that subjectivity and look at an object as an object, we have to have a say on our raga and dvesha, isn't it? So it is, in order for dhyana to happen, you should have actually practice living as a karma yogi, having a say on your raga dvesha. So that abhyasa and vairagya, they go hand in hand.
Leaving raga dvesha only is vairagya.
And this abhyasa we have to keep doing repeatedly. It is because this conditioning of our mind, the conceptualization that this is important, money is important, status, all of this has been handed down from generations and it is there in the psyche. That is how society has created that conditioning. And we are part of the society. So only when we keep doing this again and again, seeing an object as it is, and not superimposing the Shobhana Dhyasa onto that.
Nididhyasa.
And seeing the limitation of an object, that dosha darshana, is also, yeah.
Nididhyasa means it has to become your nidhi, your treasure. For anything you want treasurable, means nidhi, you have to acquire it. We have to do work for it. So we have to do abhyasa until it becomes our treasure. That is what Guruji that day said. That word nidhi has stuck to me so much. So we have to do that. Until we acquire it, we should be doing it. Manana, Shravana, Nididhyasa.
Yeah, that's so wonderful, Suresh. That is the real wealth. By abhyasa and vairagya, then the mind can be mastered. Mana grihate. The mind that is always chattering, always preaching, the mind that is in the form of agitation, because it is away from the dhyeya, the object of meditation, Atma. This mind, this agitation that is so difficult to master can be mastered. But you cannot simply sit there and expect the mind to take care of itself. You have to pay some attention to it, as Krishna says here. Asamyatatmana yogo dushprapiti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptumupayatah.
Jai Gurudev Bela, can I take over? I guess it is, there is a bit
because
of
a message is
disturbance.
coming again and again.
Yeah,
it is
it's a little
unstable.
broken.
Yeah. You want me to continue?
I will chant once. Asamyatatmana yogo dushprapa iti me matihi vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptumupayataha. Asamyata atmana, by the one for whom the mind is not mastered. Yoga, dushprapaha, difficult to gain. Iti, thus, me, my, matihi, vision. Tu, whereas, vashyatmana, by the one whose mind is mastered. Yatata, by the one who makes effort. Upayataha, with the proper means, that is practice and objectivity. Avaptum shakyaha, it can be gained. Asamyata atmana yogaha dushprapah iti me matihi tu vashyatmana yatata upayataha avaptum shakyaha. Yoga is difficult to gain for the one by whom the mind is not mastered. This is my vision, whereas it can be gained by the one whose mind is mastered, who makes effort with the proper means, that is, practice and objectivity. One who does not practice meditation, abhyasa, and who does not have objectivity, vairagya, is called asamyata atma in this verse, meaning that the mind is not brought under control. And can the mind be brought under control? Yes, Krishna says, but with difficulty. It is dushprapa. Furthermore, unless the mind is mastered, it is not possible to gain the yoga being discussed here, the capacity to see the sameness that exists in all beings and in which all beings exist. What Krishna says here is his vision, mati, which is not the same as an opinion, since it is not something that can be contended and dismissed. So me matihi, it's his vision. So it is like irrefutable. It is not something that you can argue and debate upon. So what he says is, one who does not practice meditation, abhyasa, and who does not have objectivity, vairagya, is called a asamyata atma in this verse, meaning that the mind is not brought under control. And can the mind be brought under control? Yes, Krishna says, but with difficulty. It is dushprapa. Furthermore, unless the mind is mastered, it is not possible to gain the yoga being discussed here. The capacity to see the sameness that exists in all beings and in which all beings exist. So the capacity to see the sameness that exists in all beings and in which all beings exist. That is the highest state that we can actually aspire to be in. So what Krishna says here is his vision, mati, which is not the same as an opinion, since it is not something that can be contented and dismissed. By the practice of abhyasa and vairagya, the mind is brought into one's own hands, which is why the person who can do this is also called Vashya Atma. Here, such a person is always alert. Alertness is something that should always be with you, not something practiced for a period of time. For example, you cannot say that you practiced alertness for 6 years and it was very good, just as you cannot say you practiced breathing for 6 years. It is not as though you give up breathing after having practiced it for some time. It is your very life. Alertness is the same. By such a person who continues to maintain this alertness, yatata, by the one who has a certain mastery over his mind, vashyatmana, it is possible to gain the vision of sameness. Yoga avaptum shakyaha. I think I will share my screen, Bela. 1 second. Let me see if I'll be able to share. So this is, yeah, I think I'll center it a little bit. Is it enough visible to everyone? Yeah. So by the practice of abhyasa and vairagya, the mind is brought into one's own hands, which is why the person who can do this is also called Vashya Atma here. Such a person is always alert. Alertness is something that should always be with you, not something practiced for a period of time. For example, you cannot say that you practiced alertness for 6 years and it was very good. Just as you cannot say you practiced breathing for 6 years. It is not as though you give up breathing after having practiced it for some time. It is your very life. Alertness is the same. By such a person who continues to maintain this alertness, yatata, by the one who has a certain mastery over his mind, vashyatmana, it is possible to gain the vision of sameness. Yoga avaptum shakyaha. I'm just reminded of the alertness of a dog. In fact, there's a beautiful Subhashitani regarding how a student has to be. He has to have the alertness of a dog. And that one-pointed nature of a crane. And it's a beautiful Subhashitani. I don't remember the whole thing right now. But then this alertness, if we have experienced a dog, if we've seen how a dog is, it might be sleeping, but the moment a little sound is, it just wakes up. Doesn't matter how deep the sleep is. So that awareness and alertness is what keeps us from getting back into the ways of the mind, the slippery mind. not something to be done. Krishna mentions in this verse that this yoga is gained by a particular means, upayataha. And what is that means, upaya? Abhyasa and vairagya are the means for gaining this vision, as Krishna had already told Arjuna. Because abhyasa and vairagya are the means, Arjuna's gaining the yoga was no longer in Krishna's hands, because Krishna has already covered the subject matter. Now, this is something that has to be done, and it is up to Arjuna to do it. He has to pay attention to his mind. Krishna had said everything he could say. There was nothing more to be taught, only something to be done. Vairagya and Abhyasa would take care of any problems, any obstructions to gaining the knowledge. This is why Krishna does not say very much about the doing of it. When there is something to be discussed, like the Vastu, Brahma Atma, then one can talk indefinitely, which is what Krishna does, and which is why there are 18 chapters of the Gita. But here, there is something to be done now by Arjuna. Therefore, Krishna leaves it at that. You will find that Krishna talks a lot about Atma, about the wise person, about the vision. But when it comes to meditation, which is to be done, there are only a few verses because it is something to be done. Wherever there is something to be done, Krishna states it briefly and adequately and then continues on. Whereas, wherever something is to be unfolded, he goes on and on because it is something that has to be understood, not something that has to be done. In the next verse, Arjuna presents another problem, which is purely an imagined problem. I will just go through this one more time. Huh? So this paragraph is very reassuring. All that we have to do is put in that little effort and do the abhyasa and vairagya. And once your Atma is Vashya Atma, you have your mind under your control, then this yoga avaptum shakyaha. It's possible to gain this vision of sameness. So we have to focus on being alert, yatata. And this alertness comes with practice of yoga, Sudarshan Kriya. So they're all so beautifully linked. Awareness is the key. Awareness, knowledge, and practice. They all go together. Not something to be done. Krishna mentions in this verse that this yoga is gained by a particular means, upayataha. And what does that means, upaya? Abhyasa and vairagya are the means for gaining this vision, as Krishna had already told Arjuna. Because abhyasa and vairagya are the means, Arjuna's gaining the yoga was no longer in Krishna's hands, because Krishna has already covered the subject matter. Now, this is something that has to be done, and it is up to Arjuna to do it. He has to pay attention to his mind. Krishna had said everything he could say. There was nothing more to be taught, only something to be done. Vairagya and Abhyasa would take care of any problems, any obstructions to gaining the knowledge. This is why Krishna does not say very much about the doing of it. When there is something to be discussed, like the Vastu, Brahma Atma, then one can talk indefinitely, which is what Krishna does, and which is why there are 18 chapters of the Gita. But here, there is something to be done now by Arjuna. Therefore, Krishna leaves it at that. You will find that Krishna talks a lot about Atma, about the wise person, about the vision, but when it comes to meditation, which is to be done, there are only a few verses because it is something to be done. Wherever there is something to be done, Krishna states it briefly and adequately, and then continues on. Whereas, wherever something is to be unfolded, he goes on because it is something that has to be understood, not something that has to be done. That is why Atma Bodh is all about describing the Atma. We have how many? Some 68 verses, 64 or 68 verses there. So what I was thinking, and if it is agreeable to all of you, because this Vairagya and Abhyasa is so important, should we just go through this one more time, the last two verses that Krishna has said?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, should we just go through that one more time so that then it becomes stronger? Because the next question Arjuna is asking is all about, it's an imagined question. Ayati shraddhayo peto yoga chalita manasa aprapya yoga samsiddhim kamgatin Krishna gacchati. He says, what happens to that person not gaining success in yoga, to which end does the one who is endowed with faith in the Shastra, whose effort is inadequate, and whose mind wanders away from yoga go? He's like sidetracking a little bit. So before we get all lost in Arjuna's question, I think it will be good to go through this, the last two verses one more time. So we are clear in what the upaya that Krishna is giving us. So in the next verse, Krishna answers Arjuna's question about how to, okay, I'll just read this. Arjuna's problem is universal. If Arjuna's mind was nothing but agitation, what about those minds given to the modern phenomenon called stress? Something happens in Iran, and having read about it in the morning paper, you are already upset before you even have your shower. Anyone living in today's world where the input is so much can identify with Arjuna's problem and ask the same question. The problem is very well known, as Shankara also confirms. In Arjuna's time, the question was relevant. In Shankara's time, it was relevant. And today, it is relevant. In fact, the nature of the mind being what it is, it will always be relevant. Therefore, one has to know the ways of the mind by paying attention to it and gain a certain mastery. In the next verse, Krishna answers Arjuna's question about how to manage the mind. Shri Bhagavanuvacha asamshayam mahabaho manodurnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. I think these verses are worth memorizing, so that it keeps coming back to us when it's required. Shri Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Uvacha said, Mahabaho, O mighty arm, Arjuna, Asamshayam, no doubt, Manaha, mind, Durnigraham, very difficult to control, Chalam, agitated, Tu, but, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, Abhyasena, by practice, Cha, and Vairagyena, by objectivity, Grihyate, is mastered. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Mahabaho Asamshayam Manaha Durnigraham Chalam Tu Kaunteya Abhyasena Cha Vairagyena Grihyate. Shri Bhagavan said, no doubt, O mighty armed Arjuna, the agitated mind is very difficult to control. But, O son of Kunti, by practice and objectivity, it is mastered. Here Krishna first addresses Arjuna as O mighty arm, Mahabaho. Being a great warrior, Arjuna was of course considered to be mighty, but his might, his strength, should include his mastery over his mind. One's strength may be useful for knocking the heads of others, but it is not enough to take care of one's own silly mind. Krishna confirms this here by saying, asamshayam, no doubt, indicating that there was no doubt that the mind is restless and difficult to master. Who says the mind is not restless? To recognize that the mind is restless is to have won half the battle. Suppose someone tells me that his or her mind is agitated, and I say that getting agitated is not good at all, that it does not solve anything, and therefore do not get agitated. All that will happen is that the person will become more agitated. What use is such advice? It is not as though the person wants to get agitated. Therefore, this particular advice is useless. Telling someone not to get agitated does not help at all. Whereas, if one accepts agitation as the nature of the mind, half the battle is won. I'm just reminded of Gurudev's sentence saying, in school, we are not taught how to take care of our anger, how not to get hurt. We are taught mathematics, science, and everything. But children are not taught how not to get angry. We just tell them, don't be angry. It is like you're telling them, don't be agitated. They'll get even more agitated. So acceptance is the first step. If the program of recovery sponsored by Alcoholics Anonymous is the first step is for the person to say that he or she has no power over alcohol. This has to be accepted first. Otherwise, there is no hope of recovery. The same thing is true with everything, not just alcohol. I have no power over anger. I have no power over this restless mind. When I accept this, then half the battle is won. What comes also is the Disha Pranayam that we do. You are not getting angry. It is the angels that govern anger in the direction of the north that, are responsible for your emotions. So even that Disha Pranayam is like you are surrendering to those forces there. So you're accepting that.
I didn't hear it properly. Can you say it again? What pranayam?
We do a Disha Pranayam. Disha is the directions. It is believed that the angels governing the different directions, north, south, east, west, are responsible for the negative emotions that we go through. That negative, positive, both. Anger and awareness are attributed to direction north. Similarly, I think it starts with east. It starts with the
Attachment entanglement.
Attachment entanglement first. Thank you, Madhuriji. Attachment entanglement towards the east. And then you keep moving about 90 degrees every time. So from east, you come to south, lust and obsession. And then you move to the west. That is, I think, greed and jealousy. And then you come to north, which is anger and what is the other one? That
Arrogance.
Is there? Arrogance. Anger. Maybe we'll share it in the group. There's a beautiful technique that is done. It is like you are not. You're not the actual. You're not the one getting angry, but it is the angels that govern that direction north are kind of responsible for your emotion. So you just surrender to them. When you surrender to them and let go, you have this feeling that it is getting away from you. That's a technique that is used to get rid of these negative emotions.
Here surrendering is like vairagya only. We are surrendering the emotions. That is what it is, that Shobhana. What?
Shobhana Dhyasa.
So that is what we are superimposing it. I'm attached to it. If I don't get, I will get angry. Like that, So these are all the negative things. So when you surrender it, that is vairagya. We leave to it. Means we are away from it. Angels are taking care of it. I am not responsible for it. Like that. So abhyasa and vairagya.
When we read that sloka, right? And then the meaning for vairagya, I see there's objectivity, right?
Correct.
So in the other, when we did, I think was it a Sattva, when we say vairagya, that is more of dispassion to things. So what is that? I mean, I know we read about objectivity in there. You see object as an object rather than superimposing something on it. So I'm just going by that because we are reading again, so try to understand better.
No, because you see,
So,
objectivity is not that vairagya. Vairagya is leaving the subjectivity. You are seeing objectively. And the emotions attached to it, that is subject, that you are leaving it. That is the definition is given, We can read it. We'll just see that.
Yeah, we'll read that. While it is true, Dr. Mara, vairagya is described as dispassion, that is knowing what is permanent, what is impermanent.
Impermanent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So that is also objectivity, isn't it? In a way, that is objectivity. You know that money is not permanent, but you're giving so much of value to money because subjectively it has been ingrained in you from ever since you're a child that having money is a sign of success. Keeping money where it belongs, that is being objective. So vairagya is seeing what is permanent as permanent and what is non-permanent is non-permanent. So ultimately that is what it is. But here Swamiji has explained it down to our daily life as to, how we can objectify it. I don't know whether it is.
Yeah, I get it. So I'm just trying to see, that
correlation.
Correlation, and also this whole thing is about mastering the mind. So want to learn the techniques of that mind mastering by this abhyasa and vairagya. So we need to understand that clearly what that is, that vairagya.
And Krishna, being very naughty, what we have to do actually, I would think he should deal more with and talk about what has to be done. He is nicely given only 2 verses and he's left it to Arjuna to do.
Right. Because, I see that he's an adult. So he leaves it. I mean, in a way, it's nice, he does it to people.
He's not nagging Arjuna, like how we normally nag our children. We tell them to do something and we don't just sit at that. We go on and on and on after them.
Exactly. So this is what my husband always says. And when I go to my daughter's house, I tell her, oh, do this, do that, like that. Then my husband said, you tell her one time, don't keep on telling them, so like that, you're treating us an adult rather than like me.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's such a beautiful, very beautiful.
Yeah. Because I was not, I didn't quite understand when I was reading.
I said, Arey, why is Krishna spending only little time for something that has to be done, when that is what is the most important thing for us to do in order to get what he's describing all about the Atma? He's spending 18 chapters, and only one of the 18 chapters, there's only one chapter, and that too few slokas in that he talks of about mastering the mind. But yeah, he's an adult, a parent who just mentions once, like you very rightly said. So it is up to us to hold on to that. That is why I think we'll do it again. So we'll retain most of this so that we can put it into practice. So the Krishna accepts this one great psychological fact, that the nature of the mind is agitation. One does not try to remove the agitation. One simply accepts that it is agitation. Do not get agitated over agitation, thinking that it is something you are going to solve. Also, do not think that your mind is something peculiar, because it is not. I'm just reminded of what Suma was sharing the other day, saying, in spite of me doing Kriya, I'm still getting upset and angry and all that. We just have to accept that the mind is the way it is and not get agitated over it. Any mind is agitation. Agitation is the nature of the mind, because the mind has to change. It is meant to change. Try to imagine a mind that has a constant thought. A constant thought means that you cannot see anything else. 10 miles ago, you saw one tree, and still the tree is right in front of you. Nothing else is there. No car, no person, nothing. You would not even survive with such a mind. The mind must necessarily change. Just as in a movie, the frame must always be changing at a certain speed for you to be able to see objects, movement, etc. Here too, the mind has to keep changing all the time so that you can see. This is why the mind is called kshanika. One particular thought is always kshanika, meaning that it does not even last for a second. Just to say the word second involves so many parts, so many frames, so many changes, all of which are kshanika. This is the nature of the vritti, the thought. Even to recognize this fact, the mind has to be kshanika. Otherwise, if the mind is stuck on the one that has been spoken earlier, it is like getting stuck to the tree that you've seen 10 miles before. So for our mind to understand, even unless the mind is kshanika, you're not able to grasp knowledge. You're not able to see things. Since the nature of the mind is kshanika, naturally it is going to change. Therefore, Krishna says, there is no doubt about it, Arjuna. The mind is chala, chanchala, restless. The word chala also means agitation. And being chala, it is very difficult to control. Manah durnigraham chalam, he said. In other words, he agrees with what Arjuna has said about the mind, that it is as difficult to have mastery over the mind as over the wind. By repeating what Arjuna has said, he is saying that the nature of the mind should be accepted as such. Accept the fact that the mind is agitation, that it has its own roots, that it has its own logic, and that therefore it is never illogical. In the frame of the mind, it has its own logic. We always think the mind is illogical, but that is not correct. The mind does have its own logic. If we suddenly think of something, we think that the thought has come from nowhere. But it has not come from nowhere. It has come from somewhere, meaning there is some logic for it. But why, when nothing has happened outside, when everything is calm, do I suddenly have this thought? This simply means that outside situations are not required for a thought to occur. We have enough going on inside for this to happen. Why, for example, in the midst of meditation, do I suddenly think of okras? And why, when I'm talking and wanting to come up with some funny word, did this word okra come to me? There must be some logic for it. The point here is that whatever suddenly occurs in your head has its own logic. There is nothing illogical in the world. There is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic. Originally, of course, everything is illogical. But then afterwards, it is all logical. Within the illogical, we find there is a logic. That is, we understand that when something occurs, there is some reason for it. We must understand then that the mind is like this. This is its nature. This everything being illogical originally is that everything is mithya. That is illogical. The whole world itself is a superimposition on Brahma and Atma. So originally, although it is illogical, there is a logic within this illogical world. And that is what we understand. Does this mean that I should leave the mind as it is? We could say, yes, the mind is agitation. Forget about it. Do not worry about it. The problem, however, is that when the mind is agitation, I am agitation. Therefore, we have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I. This is the whole trick here, which is why Krishna tells Arjuna that the mind can be mastered by practice and objectivity. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. If you remember the previous verses, I think we learned about Atma is Nitya Aparoksha. Atma is always there. It is always present. It is only that we get lost. I am angry. I am sad. That I am is always there. So what we need is dissociate the emotion from this I am. That is the whole trick. Create that distance between. We have to learn to discover the distance between the mind and I.
In this particular thing, how the subject-object relationship, when you see the body as a gross body and the mind is like subtle body and the causal body, above that is this consciousness, right? Like you said, that the three stages of the sleep, right? The waking, wakeful state,
Dream
and then the dream state, and then the deep sleep state. All of this state, there is a subject that a person, what do you call that? How do you say that? I mean, there's a person, and then viewer, and then the world that you're seeing, right? I mean, that's an object. So whatever in the wakeful world, like we are the subject, and then everything around us is the object, the whole world. Like always the subject-object relationship. But above all this is that the consciousness. It's always there, like you said. It's always there. And if that's the one thing, it's not going anywhere. So it's vast, it's not just in you, it's there, it's limitless. That's how it comes about.
The substratum of everything is that I, and that runs in and through. It is there in all the three states, in all the bodies.
Yeah, in everything. So it's all pervading, that's
That is
how
the only thing which is. That is
yeah.
existence. That is the Sat.
Yeah,
Sat
exactly.
Asat,
That
the truth.
such ananda, like yeah, existence, consciousness, and
Bliss.
bliss. This existence, it's really, where we don't understand this word existence that much. Like when you read this Pratas Smarami, it's so nicely explained there, um, all this, like our body is made of the matter and then it disintegrates. So it doesn't exist. I mean, everything doesn't exist, like even the clay, like the pot, once it breaks, it doesn't exist. Like that, So if you see everything, it becomes nothing, like empty. And, anyway, I don't, I'm so.
No, which is true, Dr. Mara. This is what
Yeah.
I'm reminded also of this physicist who
Yeah.
told Gurudev, his name is
Yeah.
Dr. Jude. He says, I've learned matter for almost 3 decades only to
Right.
know and realize that it does not exist.
Yeah.
Scientifically, they have come to conclusion that there is no matter. So the visible world that we see, full of matter, everything, this chair, table, this computer, everything, it does not exist. And they have mathematically come to this conclusion using quantum
physics.
And there is a Nobel Prize that two of them received because they have they proved that it is not real. What we see is not real.
Not real. Yeah, exactly. And
Our
then
rishis have got this long ago, way back. But modern science is now coming to realize, and it is actually, there is a congruence between modern science and what our Vedas and Shastras have been saying all along.
Yes, that's that existence part of it is so true. Then you realize, oh my God, this consciousness. Like when you talk about consciousness, and you're talking about this computer and all this, right? I mean, they're making the super duper the robots to function everything, but can they make this consciousness with the computer? They can't. They don't know how they can make it. I mean, the one with it will do all the actions.
It is the cause for them to do it. The cause, you cannot create the cause. The cause is there. It is always there. It is that summum bonum, that substratum, that which because of consciousness, they're able to create all these computers. Because of this, it is the cause of causes. So it's that karana karanaya, which is what Swamiji is very beautifully saying here. There is nothing illogical in this world. There is always some logic.
Originally, so that is more of a cause and effect, right? The cause and effect part of it.
Correct. Okay. Yeah. In fact, when I was reading this other thing, that when you're in meditation, or it is not just some thought randomly comes to you. There is a logic behind why one particular thought came to you. For instance, this happens to me. This has been happening to me from last several years. Randomly, there is a thought of a patient that comes to my mind. That patient I would have seen maybe a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago. And surprisingly, within the next 1 or 2 days, that patient is there in front of me and I'm seeing that patient. So I was wondering, why do I get these random thoughts of these random patients that come? Probably
Yeah, that
It is,
happened to me also, right?
maybe they were thinking about me, and maybe
Uh,
my mind caught that thought, and that is why I got that thought in my mind. So this telepathy and all that we talk about is
yeah.
actually logical. So there is that realm there where we don't understand with our small mind, but there is something more to this that that is actually logical, which
It
is why.
happens to me in the dream, as you are thinking, no, in the meditation.
Mm,
It happens to me in the dream. As my car just immediately breaks down. And immediately I get up and just, okay, it's a dream. I was just, but after 15, 20 days, the same instance happens on the same spot.
mm,
Oh, so many times it has happened to me
mm.
like that. So I was just thinking why this dream has come to me. That's also a thought, no? Dream also is a subconscious thought. What you see, you are creating it. So many times it has happened.
Yeah,
Especially with my car, I immediately I gets that. It was happening in Bahrain, it was happening in Saudi Arabia.
it is described,
Oh,
no, the 5 kinds of dreams. It is described. Some of our dreams, it is like a premonition. Something that might happen in future actually comes into your dream, because it is that realm of knowledge, I think, where you're tapping into, that you get these little glimpses as premonitions.
or you
So
can
each,
say like intuition.
yeah, maybe intuition. It's that world realm of prajna. So I will read for another. It's already 6:12. Should we stop here and then do manana on this? Caring for the child within. I will come to caring of the child within, and then we'll
We are
proceed.
doing Manana side by side only.
Also, I know we are
Yeah, yeah.
caring for the child within. By addressing Arjuna here as Kaunteya, meaning the son of Kunti, Krishna is indicating that the child was still there in Arjuna, which is where the mind has its own roots. This child has to be taken care of by the person. Therefore, there is double child care. When you were a child, someone else took care of you. But now, you have to take care of your inner child. The first child care is done by one's parents or certain other adults, whereas this child care must be done by the person. Everyone nurses a child inside, and that child has to be taken care of. Everyone has to do it. This is the Purushartha that we have to exercise. This inner child care has to be done by the person. This is where your self-effort comes in. You cannot leave it on destiny. I think sometime back we had this discussion about whether, I think Rinal had this question, the thoughts that we get, is it not based on our destiny? But yes, but you have that doing something, that taking care of that inner child is in your hands. That is your Purushartha. Everyone nurses a child inside, and that child has to be taken care of. Everyone has to do it. There is always a child who is disappointed in his or her perceptions. My mother does not like me. My father hates me. These were the child's perceptions. And because of the behavior of the people involved, they have some validity. This is why the child remains inside the person. There is always a crying child, a weeping child down below, which is why the mind suddenly takes off, especially when you reach the age of 35 years and over. This is the time that all the disappointments of the child come out one by one. And if you begin to study Vedanta, they all come out. Studying Vedanta means that you look at yourself. Previously, you were doing other things. Looking at yourself is the first thing that must be done here, which is when the child comes out. When else will this child be taken care of? It has to be taken care of. It has to be addressed. Otherwise, you become 75 years old and are still a child. This then is the point Krishna is making here by calling Arjuna as Kaunteya. First, he refers to Arjuna as an adult, Mahabahu, and then asks him to take care of the child by addressing him as Kaunteya. Krishna then tells Arjuna how this is to be done, saying that by practice and objectivity, the mind can be mastered. Abhyasena vairagyena cha grihyate. And what is this practice, abhyasa? The practice is the practice of yoga, just discussed by Krishna, through which a certain distance is gained between your mind and yourself. This distance enables you to look at yourself positively, to see yourself exactly as you are, to see what the nature of I is. In this way, you come to understand that every thought is you, no doubt, but that you are free from thought. But that you are free from thought. Seeing this particular fact more and more, seeing it inside very clearly, is what is meant by abhyasa, practice. Seeing this particular situation, thought being I, while I is not any thought, is what is called nididhyasana. And doing the same thing again and again is called abhyasa, which enables you to gain mastery over your mind. Abhyasena grihyate. So the practice is the practice of yoga just discussed by Krishna. I think we will have to go up one more, few more shlokas maybe.
Can you read that 4 lines that you just read?
I will read. I'm reading that. I'm coming back to this paragraph. The practice is the practice of yoga that just discussed by Krishna, through which a certain distance is gained between your mind and yourself. This distance enables you to look at yourself positively, to see yourself exactly as you are, to see what the nature of I is. In this way, you come to understand that every thought is you, no doubt, but that you are free from thought. Seeing this particular fact more and more, seeing it inside very clearly, is what is meant by abhyasa, practice. Seeing this particular situation, thought being I, while I is not any thought, is what is called nididhyasana. And doing the same thing again and again is called abhyasa, which enables you to gain mastery over your mind. Abhyasena grihyate. So
that is same as asking who are you? That question. Who are you? Who are you? Guruji always says, no, you keep this question always with you. Who am I? That I is not the mind. You know, the distance between the mind and the I. That is what we have to see. That abhyasa we have to do and call it as nididhyasa. If you get that, that is the nidhi. So wonderful.
So seeing this particular situation, thought being I, but I is not any thought. while I is not any thought. Is what is called nididhyasana. I think we will stop here today. Practice of japa is what we'll do tomorrow, and usefulness of a mantra. In fact, I think maybe we'll need to go up a few shlokas to see what Krishna talked about, this seeing a distance between yourself and you. To see yourself exactly as you are, to see what the nature of I is. This distance between your mind and yourself. He's talked about this, I think, a couple of shlokas before this. So let's close our eyes once and just reflect on what we learned and what we heard. Jai Gurudev. I invite all of you to share your reflections. So with respect to the mind, the first step is to recognize that the mind is agitation and to accept this fact and not resist it. You cannot push it down. You cannot control your mind by saying, I should not get agitated. That is not possible because that is the nature of the mind. Because the mind is kshanika. It goes on changing, moment to moment. That is its function. Otherwise, we will not be able to perceive things around us. We will not even be able to understand whatever is being spoken. So that nature of the mind is how it is, and it is required for it. It has its own logic. Why any thought comes to you? It just does not randomly come to you. In fact, food also has its effect on us, which we will see later in the other chapters, where you eat a lot of rajasic food, of course you will have more thoughts coming into your mind. So everything is very logical in this originally illogical world. And this mind, this agitated mind, has its roots in childhood. Because from there, and because a newborn baby is born, although it has its own vasanas from the previous life, the new impressions are created by the child as the child is growing up. So all these perceptions that we grew up with, they of course govern the way our mind functions. And if we do not take care of this inner child, even when a person becomes 70, 75, he will still remain that child, the crying child, the weeping child, complaining child. So it is up to each one of us to take care of our inner child. And the sooner we do it, the better it is for us on the path. First is to recognize that there is an inner child that is crying inside of us.
it looks like, when the whole thing is like, it's really nicely given. It's preparing this mind clear of everything. Like, you got to be really to receive that knowledge, that he's clearing all these thoughts, or whatever that, like you call it, as impressions or thoughts from the childhood, that should be cleared. Is that what
That is
this
what is abhyasa. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is why the importance of Sahaj Samadhi meditation. Unlike any other guided meditation, Sahaj Samadhi, using the mantra, when you do the meditation, it clears up these impressions that we have gathered over lifetimes. Forget about this forget about other lifetimes. This lifetime itself, we've gathered enough muck in our head. So all of us over here who have, I think all of us must have done the Sahaj Samadhi meditation. It becomes so important if you want to progress on this path. That is why that abhyasa, again and again, that doing it, that is why Gurudev has said, do it twice a day, 20 minutes. Meditation is the key. So that's something that has to be done. That is what we have to do. Krishna cannot meditate for Arjuna. Arjuna has to do it himself. Krishna can only guide. He can only show the way. But Arjuna has to start walking. He has to start the practice. So for all of us, I would recommend that we take this commitment that if we are still not practicing Sahaj twice a day, and those 20 minutes, that would be the first step.
I am not doing it, so I should do it.
Yes. Otherwise, see, all this will be very nice when we're listening to it. But are we actually letting the Gita go through us? We are going through the Gita, correct? But we have all these practical tools that we are all blessed to have, like the Disha Pranayam, Sahaj Samadhi meditation, Sudarshan Kriya, Padma. They're all so beautifully kind of designed. They're all in place. All we have to do is do. Isn't it?
Right.
So let's take this commitment to do it. Today is what? March 30th, no?
Yeah.
March 30th. 30th? 30th.
So 29th. Oh, for you, 30th, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is Sri Rama Navami, They say anything good that you start is Vijay Dashami is the day that they begin anything new. But we will not wait until tomorrow. We'll start today itself. We'll take this commitment that we will meditate twice a day without fail and make that a priority.
Yeah.
Then all this will have a meaning. Then we'll
slippery mind. It will be mastering the mind, right?
Correct.
This is the second one I had to
incorporate. Then we'll be able to get that distance between our mind and ourselves. When you say I'm angry, you can distance yourself. The mind is getting angry. I am different from the mind. Yeah, I am. And you stay with that I am feeling inside.
Very nice. Thank you.
So we have some practical tools that we have to incorporate and do. Even Gurudev, he just gives us, he does not go behind us flagging the whole thing. He is not a nagging master at all. Have you done 10 times? For me, I'm not like that. I mean, I am a nagging mother. I should confess. Because it is with concern. It's not so much that so with my son, when I talk to my son, during the conversation, one sentence will be there. Have you done your kriya? It just comes out automatically. I think I should be more aware and not keep saying that, keep asking it time and again. We should let them be. I think they will realize it and they will do it. We should have the faith. I think I should have the faith and trust that he will do it. But as a mother, it is coming more out of, should I say, concern, and that nagging nature automatically comes up. Prem doesn't ask so many times. I ask.
Same thing happens with me also, Brahmaraji.
So
So this
all the
doesn't ask.
mothers are like this, right? We keep on asking the same thing. Did you eat? Did you sleep?
First question is, did you eat? First
Yeah.
question is, did you eat? And then it is all the others.
Yeah, they remind their age then. We are this old now. We are no more kids.
And what my daughter tells me is Amma, you're always in this mode of advice giving mode. We continue to feel we are children. We are grown up. We can take care of ourselves. So just don't be in this advice giving mode all the time, which is true. I should step back and then trust that they will take care of themselves. So that is also abhyasa also, isn't it? So this,
We have to follow Krishna's mode of teaching.
correct.
Yeah, very beautifully you pointed out
As a
today.
You just give and then leave.
Yeah, just tell them, and then okay, Krishna will take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Educate and ignore is what we have to practice.
Right? Yeah,
Right.
it's so nice. Krishna is doing his job to us, That's
Otherwise,
good.
see, when I sit for meditation, these
Yeah.
are what the thoughts will keep coming. Oh, did Kalyani,
Mm.
did he do this? Did he do that? So
Mm.
unless I let go of those thoughts that are occupying my mind, I am
Yeah.
not able to meditate.
There you go. So we have to clear our mind of all these unnecessary thoughts. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Correct.
then the old impressions.
Mm.
Okay. That's what we have to clear our mind from,
Yeah.
Good, good.
That there is something down below when we read, it was about when a person who loves so much that he wants to control, it becomes an obsession. So
Yeah.
that with a mother-child relationship, although of course there is love, there's no doubt there's love, but somewhere there is that element of control and that obsession that happens. That minus becomes so strong, that mamakara becomes so strong that it might itself become a binding factor. So letting go of that
Yeah.
is
Attached
also important.
to things that, we have to let go of those.
You take
attachments.
care. As a responsible parent, you of course have to take care. But to what extent? And then you let go.
Yeah. So there are so many
Layers,
things,
no? Layers to this.
layers to the mind that we have to figure it out. Like, yeah, that's good. We have few more paragraphs to finish, and then
Yeah, we
hopefully
have.
get
We'll
together.
do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So does anyone else want to share anything before we close?
Yeah, Jai Gurudev.
Yes.
I'm getting good tips. My nephew is coming and staying with me for 2 years for study. So this parenting techniques are so good
Right.
for me.
Right.
Because,
In fact,
yeah,
Percy ji has a lot of parenting tips in his kitty.
yeah, so
That
nice. Because I don't have kids, so this is like I'm little worried about his coming, and then I don't know if he doesn't study what to do and all this. This is all trick. I will tell him first one day. See, I am not going to tell you. You have to take care yourself.
Correct.
Then I will help you whatever you want, like that. It's so good because I am also kind of nagging. Oh, did you study? Did you do this? Did you do this? Like that kind of person. Yeah, so good. Thank you so much.
Right.
Jai good day.
Correct. It is like because I deal with a lot of newborn babies and their mothers, current modern mothers. Earlier they never did that. They want to express and see how much milk they're producing, and they have a weighing scale. After every feed, there are some mothers who weigh their babies, and they bring to me a whole list this is the weight, this is how much he's drunk. I said, come on, just trust in yourself, trust in the capacity of your in your capacity to nurture your baby. I give the example of nature, and I say, look at all the other animals. Do they have a weighing scale? Do they have a breast pump, and do they continually do that? Do they have even formula to feed their babies? They just trust in nature. And how many puppies a dog gives birth to? 6, 7, 8 sometimes. And they all grow. So I tell them, you have only one baby to take care of. Why are you doubting yourself? You just trust in yourself. But sometimes giving advice is very easy, but practicing it yourself becomes, that is the issue. So I have to work from within with respect to my children. Then let go of that. So I think trust is the key. Yeah.
And the more you leave them free, they will come back to you more actually.
Mm.
And then they will miss that somebody is helping me to miss that nagging. They used to feel nagging, but when you let go and let them have their own ways, then they will come back and they will be missing your nagging actually. Jai Gurudev.
Yeah. So before we close today, I would like to request Percy ji. I know I promised I'll get back to him regarding course dates in May. So I'll contact him later. Maybe all of us should plan to do an advanced course with him sometime in May, maybe before Gurudev's birthday if possible. And we'll take it forward there.
Is that going to be online then?
Online. It will be online, Dr. Mara.
Oh, good. I'll put my name there.
So we'll close here today. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Happy Ram Navami to all.
Jai Gurudev. Happy Ram Navami. The Disha Pranayam is in the YouTube, Brahmaraj.
Yeah, I will post it in
put
the.
it also.
Yeah.
Yeah.